Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Big Eye Crappie Man and His Catch.
And I'm Rod King, the Big Eye Crappie Man.
And I'm Robin King, his best catch.
That's right. Last week, the last episode, we had came across Kerr Lake, Bugs Island, in a very bad storm in my boat, and we were very blessed to get to the other side. It was a rough ride, and got to the other side, and ended up catching some fish to finish in third place at that tournament. But it wasn't long after that we got married, and it's been 35 years since we got married. Well, it wasn't long after we got married I realized that if I was going to fish bass or crappie tournaments, I needed to be prepared for whatever would come up. Because a fisherman on the water, you can be fishing in a little place and not be aware you're catching fish or whatever, or thinking every second you're looking at the fish, everything to make sure what you might be doing wrong, where you can catch fish and all these things. You're not worried about the weather. Well, I wanted to be prepared, so I told Robin. I said, Robin, I hadn't been married long at all. I said, Robin, I need a bigger boat. What'd you say?
Oh, honey, I love you and I want you to have a safe boat. So you go out and you get a safe boat.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
So I got in the truck, hooked up to my boat, and started west on I-85 and got to Greensboro, hit 40, went straight to Spindale, North Carolina. There was a Ranger dealership up there. The name of the guy was Hubert Green Boat and Motor. And Hubert he's been written up in Bassmaster magazine, and had a little duck that sat on the front of the boat and looked down in the water and showed him where the fish were. He was a great guy to talk to. But anyway, he gave me a good price for my existing boat, and I bought me a brand new 1988 Ranger 393 dual console, one of those big old Johnson motor on it.
I remember you telling me you got one of those, is it the dual console with the wind shield? I don't know if that's what it's called, but you got that because you were thinking of me.
That's right. So I need to have a boat where my wife can ride with me in there. And that was a blessing.
We still have that boat.
Yeah, that boat, we still have it 35 years. 35 years. But in 35 years, we've sunk a lot of trees, sunk a lot of brush, made rock piles and sunk trees on them. And ain't no telling how many thousands of Christmas trees we've put in the water, and laydowns we've just drug out in the water and sunk. And the boat's it's taken a beating. And I can remember there was a businessman in Durham. It might have been Elton Clements, I'm not sure. But anyway, he called me and said, Rod, I'm looking for some fishermen. I've got some executives coming into town, and they're from out west, and we're going to take them out fishing. Would you help us do that? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll even pay you. I said, that's even better. So I'd be happy to do that for you. So I got off work that day, took off, got to the boat ramp, had to be there by a certain time. It was Falls Lake, North Carolina. I put my boat in at Ledge Rock Boat Ramp, and I tied up to the boat dock there, and there's a bunch of bass boats and very few just regular fishing boats, but I was one of those. And all these executives were coming down the dock, getting in boats with all these people. A lot of them passed me by, but this group of 4 came up to my boat and the guy stopped and said, I want to fish with this guy. And the guys with him said, why you want to fish with him? Look at his boat. Is that thing going to float? And I said, yes, sir. You want to catch some fish, you get on in this boat. And the guy said, why you want to go fishing with him? And he goes, look at the boat. Man, that joker's been fishing. That joker, he catches fish. And so they got in the boat, we went fishing. We had a great time out there. We caught fish and enjoyed the day. And when it was over, those guys, man, they were so thankful that they had got in that boat and we caught fish, and they smelt like fish when they got out. They were happy. And 20 years. I think that boat was about 20 years old then, or maybe a little bit more. But man, it had a bunch of scratches and dull finish and just beat all to pieces. And those things were built for a lifetime. You know, they were built to make. They made them to last. And as Christians, God's made us to last.
Well, that testimony or the story about the men wanting to fish in your boat because they saw, you know, the scratches and the dents, the boat being worn, they knew you had fished in it, had caught fish in it. But that boat was a testimony to your fishing. And that reminds me of a passage in the Bible in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 that says, it starts at verse 7, and it says, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body." And that just reminds me, you know, that life in this sinful world gives us a lot of dents and scratches, and, you know, it just wears us down. But, you know, we're in these fragile bodies, but through those cracks, like the jars of clay, God's power shines through. The brokenness that we experience can be a testimony to God's work in our life. And it's the same thing with our marriage through 35 years. You know, we've had our times of trouble. We've had hardships. We've, you know, had illnesses and financial difficulties and all sorts of things that all married couples go through. But through those cracks, God has shown himself to be faithful. He has strengthened us. He has just those cracks are a testimony to God's work. And so that is such a picture of the Christian's life.
Yeah, and it's not easy. You know, after getting that boat, I probably had it probably 10 years maybe. And me and my cousin, we were fishing a Tar Heel team bass tournament down on the Roanoke River. And we had killed the fish up to Chowan. And that we blasted off that morning. We're hit, and I said, we're going across this sound. We're going to go across. You know, they're putting in behind the police station in Plymouth, North Carolina. And I said, look, we're going up to Chowan. I said, we killed them up there, and they were calling for some bad weather. And we came out. We ran down the Roanoke River and came out into the Albemarle Sound, son, and it looked like the ocean. That wind was coming out of the northeast again, and we were going into the wind. And I can remember that boat coming up high in the water and slamming, hitting the bottom. Seeing when the swell would go by, you could see stumps on the floor of the bed of the sound. And I think, man, oh Lord, if we make it across here. And when we got to the other side, I had to pry my cousin's hands off the side of that boat, boy. It was rough, but you know what? There was no way I'd have made it in that other boat. Man, God blessed us through that storm, and it was a great day of fishing and made it through that storm.
Well, that boat gave you confidence to
That's
get
right.
across that lake. But that, you know, further in that passage, it says in verse 16, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." And that boat, it's still going, but one day it's gonna give out.
Yeah.
But
That boat's kind of like the Blues Brothers, if you ever saw that movie. How when their mission was over, it just fell all to pieces. And I'm waiting for that to happen. But you know, God's been using, you know, we use that boat. And it's a ministry. I mean, my wife is as part of it as I am. Because she's the one that has to endure a lot of things for me to be able to get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and travel and set up and meet guys early in the morning before it gets light and put on these Big Eye Crappie Man tournaments, and God has blessed them. I mean, we do it to share what Jesus has done for us. And however many people come that day, man, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about the most important thing the greatest wisdom anybody could ever get. And that is Jesus and what he's done for them. And that's what the Big Eye Crappie Man tournaments are about. They're about catching fish, but they're more about reaching the community and just sharing that one day all this is going to end, and we need to have built our house on the solid foundation, and that foundation is on the Word of God, and Jesus is the Word.
Fixing our eyes on what's coming, on the unseen, and not on the temporary. So,
and go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go.
I was going to share the Big Eye Crappie Man tip for the day.
Yeah, hold on, forget that.
The Big Eye Crappie Man tip for the day is talk to people. When you go to the lake, well, I tell you, one of the greatest ways of learning to fish is talking to people who know how to fish. That experience of being out there on the water. I've learned a lot about crappie fishing after I've been fishing and I haven't caught anything, or bass fishing and I haven't caught anything, and I talked to an angler. I'm not catching anything. What did you do today? How did you catch them? What colors did you use? Were you long lining or tight lining, or what kind of crankbait were you using bass fishing? What were you, Texas rigging, Carolina rigging? What were you doing, and how? And a lot of guys that care about what they're doing and care to leave a legacy, they'll share with you. If they're all about their self, then they may not share something with you. But if they care about others, and now some people will tell you, don't ask Ron where he's fishing at. There's sometimes, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't want to lie to you. So sometimes if you're catching fish, you have to be smart, because what you can do is you can tell one person, and next thing you know, you got 50 people sitting there where you fish at. And that happens all the time. So you have to learn, pick and choose who when somebody comes and asks you, especially if they're learning and if they're a seasoned fisherman, you don't have to tell them where you're fishing at. Tell them how you're catching them and what you're using. You don't have to put them on the GPS coordinates.
And I have a tip. So you said that duck would sit at the front of the boat and show where the fish are? Is that what it was?
It was a duck.
All right. So what are those newfangled, sensors that tell people where the fish are?
With a live scope?
The live scope. Those live scopes are fancy, right? Cost a pretty penny. Save yourself some money. Just get you a duck.
That's right. A whole live scope. If you're going to compete in any kind of fishing nowadays, you got to have a live scope. But I can tell you, my nephew, he's got the nice boat. He's got a bunch of stuff. And I asked him, I said, why don't you get you a live scope? And he said, Uncle Rod, he said, I like fishing like we fish. I don't like staring at that screen all day long. He said, I want to look out I want to look at God's creation. I want to see the birds in the sky and the wind moving across the water. So that's the kind of fishing I like, because I like just the way you taught me, and that's the way I want to do it. And that's the truth. You can be if fishing becomes a video game, man, you can have it. I get outside in God's creation and enjoy the creation. And then if I get to catch a fish or share what the Lord's done for me to somebody else, man, what a blessing that is.
Wisdom. You wise, big old crappie man.
No. Blessed.
Blessed. We're blessed. Well, thank you. And that's it for today. And you can get that tip. We have a website, Well, Robin Our King, and there's a page for the Big Eye Crappie Man and His Catch. And this video is there, the scripture reference is there, and the fishing tip will be there. So,
all right.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you.